Chapter 17, Slave Labor. Coach Malloy stood in the living room facing his wife and three daughters, a new sport coat on his arm. Well, the dry cleaner says it can't be cleaned. He can get some of the paint out, but not all. And there's no way I can wear it to meetings again. So I bought a new one, and here, girls, is the bill. He walked over and handed it to Eddie. Eddie gulped. Since she had done the actual painting and it had been her idea, it was she who would be most severely punished. Their father's decision was this: since all three girls had knowingly participated in the prank, all three were responsible for earning the money it would cost to pay for a new sport jacket. Dad, I don't mind working to pay for it, but this is a lot of money. I could still be looking for jobs to do when it's time to try out for the softball team, she said. That, I'm afraid, is your problem, he told her. Lock me up with bread and water, but please don't keep me off the team. That's entirely up to you, Father said. You'll just have to work doubly hard between now and tryouts, won't you? Caroline swallowed. She knew that ever since they had moved to West Virginia, her sister had dreamed about trying out for this softball team, sure that she could out-hit and out-pitch every boy in town. This past fall, Beth and Caroline had helped her practice in the field behind the college, and Caroline imagined she could still hear the crack of the bat against the ball as Eddie hit a homer. She could see her sister's muscles tighten as she wound up for the pitch, and now Eddie passed the bill for the sport coat to Caroline and Beth. We could buy a new car for this, squeaked Caroline. Hardly, said her father. Eddie, I want you to call the Hatford boys and apologize. Ask if any of their clothes were ruined, and if they were, you can add those to your bill. Dad, they weren't supposed to be up there in the first place. That's between them and their parents, and that's not the point. You had no business doing any painting in the garage, and you know it. A garage we don't even own. Then he went upstairs to hang up his new jacket. Caroline stared at his sisters. Calling the boys to apologize was the worst punishment of all. I'll do it, Beth said. We're all in this together. I'll ask to speak to Josh. If anyone will understand, it's him. They waited until their father came downstairs. Then they went up, took the phone from their parents' bedroom, and dragged it into Beth's. Beth sat on the floor, set the phone in her lap, and took a deep breath. She dialed the Hatford's number. Eddie and Caroline sat on the floor across from her. Hello, said Beth. Is this Peter? Could I speak to Josh, please? There was a pause. No, I'm not going to say something mean to him. Just put him on, will you? Caroline rested her head on her knees and closed. Josh? Hi, this is Beth. Listen, I just wanted to say that we're really sorry you guys got paint on your clothes. Wally and Jake, I mean. I guess the joke got a little out of hand. Eddie stared at her. Sorry, she mouthed. Another pause. Well, Dad wanted me to call over and see if any of your clothes were ruined. He got paint on his jacket and he's really mad. And he said if we ruined any of your stuff, we have to pay for that too. This time, Eddie put her face on her knees. Caroline was beginning to be worried. She hadn't thought Beth would apologize quite that much. Why, the guys could say all their clothes were ruined and make the Malloy sisters their slaves for the rest of their natural lives. But then she heard Beth say, Really? Are you sure? Well, I had to find out. Thanks a lot, Josh. I really appreciate it. And Beth hung up. What's all this sorry business? Eddie demanded. And why did you have to tell them about Dad's jacket? Everything's okay, said Beth. They got the paint out themselves with turpentine, and we don't owe them anything. Now Caroline and Eddie stared. Really? Nothing? Not a cent? I don't believe it. Well, sometimes it pays to be nice, Beth told her. Whew. Now all we have to do is figure out how to earn $175 to pay for Dad's jacket. I can bake. I could take orders every week for banana bread muffins and bake them on Saturdays. Peanut butter cookies, too. Maybe I could offer to make Christmas cookies for people too busy to bake. Caroline tried to think what she could do. The thing she was best at, of course, was acting, but she doubted that anyone would pay her to come into their living room and do a dramatic reading. Maybe I could perform for little kids' birthday parties, read them stories and stuff. Eddie herself preferred the more physical jobs. She wanted to keep her body lean and limber. If it had been spring, she could have offered to wash windows or paint walls or clean the yard, but nobody had that in mind in December. I could do house cleaning. There must be busy people who are getting ready for the holidays and would like someone else to do the scrubbing. It was probably their greatest humiliation that the Malloy girls had to go around 2 Saturdays before Christmas, putting signs on telephone poles and shop windows on trees wherever they were allowed to post one offering their services. They could see the Hatford boys watching them from a distance, hiding an amused grin behind their hands or disguising a chuckle with a cough. Even Josh seemed to think it was funny. Eddie got a number of calls about house cleaning and was encouraged. With company coming, people told her, and all there was to do at Christmas, they were glad to pay to have their houses cleaned. Beth also got a few orders for Christmas cookies, so she worked every afternoon when she got home making chocolate Rice Krispies creations, fudge bars, almond rounds, and lemon squares. There was hardly time to do her own Christmas shopping and wrapping, and the lavender scarf she had been knitting for Mother still sat in the yarn basket. Caroline was the most disappointed. Doesn't anyone want to hire a budding young actress to perform at birthday parties? Isn't anyone even having birthdays around Christmas? She got only one request to entertain 3 small children one afternoon while the mother did her Christmas wrapping, but the oldest had a cold and needed Caroline to blow his nose every 5 minutes. The second child cried the whole time, and the youngest fell into the toilet. Nobody wanted her to sing or recite a scene from Wind in the Willows, and Caroline was even more glad than they were when their mother had finished her chore. If Beth had any bad feelings left toward the Haver boys, she didn't talk about them. If Eddie wished she were back in Ohio, she never said. Perhaps because Caroline had the least to do, it was she who resented the fact that she and her sisters had to work so hard to pay for Dad's jacket. She knew they were responsible, of course, but if the boys had stayed across the river where they belonged, nothing would have happened. Never mind that, she was the one who had seemed to like Buckman the most. Never mind that she loved thinking up new ways to annoy Jake and Josh and Wally, and sometimes even Peter. The fact was that everybody else was busy and she was not. And so, with the angel wrapping paper and the blue crinkle ribbon that Mother had bought at the hardware store, Caroline wrapped in a small flat box the grossest thing she could find to give to Wally Hatford, and she set it by the pile of presents waiting to be delivered there by the door. Inside was a little puddle of cat throw up that Patches, the stray cat, had deposited on the Malloy's back steps. There was a big fat hairball in the middle of the throw up. And if you looked closely, you could even find a piece or two of mouse feet. Chapter 18, mistake number 1. The week before Christmas was always the busiest time in the Hatford household. Mr. Hatford was late getting home every night each year. It seemed people mailed their Christmas cards and packages later and later, and the boy's father might be out till 6 or 7 trying to get everything delivered by Christmas Eve. Just don't do it, Tom, Wally's mother would say. If people don't think enough of their Aunt Emma to buy her a present in time, then I don't see why you need to knock yourself out trying to deliver it by Christmas Eve. But then she would remember a present she had forgotten to buy for somebody, and so each year was the same, with Mrs. Hatford and the boys doing the wrapping and decorating by themselves. The boys didn't talk about the Malloys much. For one thing, they hardly even saw Eddie, Beth, and Caroline. The girls were so busy trying to earn money to pay for the jacket. In the days that followed, however, with the girls' signs on trees and light poles all over Buckman advertising their jobs, Josh said he was feeling a little bit sorry for them. And with Christmas only a few days away, Wally perhaps should have been thinking about forgiveness too. But he couldn't quite forgive them yet because there was one little joke he had up his sleeve that was too good to pass up. He had to admit he was a little bit mad, no, a lot mad, that he had got paint on the sleeves of his jacket. But he was also still mad at Caroline for wearing his clothes to school. He could forgive her for wearing his trousers maybe and his t-shirt, his socks and shoes, but his underpants? Was there any boy in Buckman who would like to have his underpants displayed in public by a girl who was wearing them? Most boys, he figured, would have decontaminated them. Most boys, in fact, would probably have thrown them out. Wally himself was certainly never going to wear them again, especially underpants that had a happy face painted on the seat. But he had big plans for those underpants. A few days before Christmas, he put them in a box and wrapped them in the angel print paper that Mother had brought home from the hardware store. It was the blue and gold paper that the hardware store was selling at half price. He put the box aside to take to school on the last day before the Christmas holidays to put in Caroline's book bag. He was afraid she might guess who it was from, and if she did, she'd probably throw it in the Buckman River without opening it. So he didn't even put her name on it, just a little folded piece of paper under the ribbon that read, "From a secret admirer." So she'd be sure to open it. He no more admired Caroline than he admired stinkweed. When she saw the underpants, though, with another note, "Since you like them so much, you can have them," she'd know Wally was no admirer. The day before vacation, Wally ate his breakfast as usual, and when no one was looking, he went into the living room to get the little box off the mantel. At least he thought he had put it on the mantel. He wanted it someplace he would see it every day so he would not forget it, but now he didn't know where it was. There were small flat boxes and rectangular boxes, but not the square box he used to hold the underpants. "Mom, where's that box I wrapped the other day? I have to take it to school." "There are boxes all over this house, Wally. Which one do you mean?" "The square one in the angel wrapping paper. I left it on the mantel, I think." There were 4 boxes on the mantel, and they all had angel wrapping paper, his mother announced. "I have no idea which one you're talking about." Wally's heart began to pound. This was too good a joke to get lost somewhere. "Well, it's not here, and I've got to find it." "Who is it for?" Wally felt he could not possibly tell her it was for Caroline. He knew she would demand to know what was in it. Mom could smell trouble a mile away. "For my teacher," he fibbed. "Well, how nice. You'll have to find it without my help, though, because I've got a ton of things to do before I leave for work this morning." Wally kicked Snow all the way to school that morning. He couldn't believe his great joke was ruined. All that work to wrap up the package like it was something really special, and now it was gone. Whoever got it wouldn't even understand the joke, and if Wally found it later, it would be too late to take it to school and slip in Caroline's book bag. "Hi, Wally," Caroline said when she walked in. She didn't poke him in the back like with her ruler. "Merry Christmas." And to Wally's surprise, he found a present sliding over his shoulder, falling into his lap. Was this her way of apologizing for the paint prank, maybe? Fortunately, no one seemed to be looking, but Wally felt his ears burn anyway, partly at getting a gift from a girl, partly because the girl was Caroline, and partly because he knew what he had almost given her. Thanks," he said, and stuffed it into his desk before anyone could see. If Caroline thought he was going to open it here in the classroom in front of everyone, she was crazy. He felt uncomfortable all morning with Caroline sitting behind him on her best behavior. Was it possible that after all the stuff they had done to make each other miserable, she liked him anyway? Wally bolted through the door at recess, keeping as far away from Caroline as possible, and sat on the other side of the lunchroom from her at noon. He was never so glad as when school was over for the day. He crammed Caroline's present to him in his book bag, then set out for home with his brothers, glad that the Malloy girls were already far ahead. The boys were almost a block from home when they heard the light tap of a horn behind them and turned to see Mother's car pulling over the curb. Mrs. Hatford rolled down her window. "I took the afternoon off to do some Christmas errands," she told them. "I should be home in about an hour. Wally, I found that gift you wrapped and just dropped it off at the school. I told Miss Applebaum you couldn't find it this morning, but wanted her to have it." Wally's jaw dropped to his chest. "What?" "That box you wrapped. You left it on the bookcase. I just gave it to your teacher so you don't have to worry about it anymore." Mother drove away. And Wally wondered if you could have a heart attack when you were only 9 years old. Without a word to his brothers, he whirled around and about and ran as fast as he could back to the school with his book bag banging against his chest. His teacher had just received a gift that said, "From a secret admirer," and a note with his underpants saying, "You like them so much you can have them." He would probably be thrown out of elementary school and sent to a military academy. He had to stop this. His sides began to ache, his forehead to sweat. He tore up the driveway to the school and around to the faculty entrance. Then he stopped because Miss Applebaum's car was just pulling out of the parking lot and then went rolling down the street. Dear Wally and Jake and Josh and Peter, "Man, the Malloy girls must be something painting our garage. I wonder if there'll be anything left to our house to come back to, if we come back, that is. Dad's been offered a job here in Atlanta for next year, and he doesn't know yet if he's going to take it. There are a lot of things we'll miss up there in Buckman if he does. Christmas is going to be really weird down here with the weather so warm. We'll miss the snow most of all. We've got a present for Danny's teacher, though. The one who's a Georgia peach. Man, she's pretty. We're thinking of giving her one of Mom's special batches of brownies, maybe. Why don't you give Miss Applebaum a jar of dill pickles? Merry Christmas. Make sure the Malloy's tree doesn't catch on fire and burn down our house. Bill and Danny, Steve, Tony, and Doug.